Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for tuning in to Own Being Unique TV. I'm your host, Myrhanda McDaniels, and today we have the special honor and privilege of speaking with the owner and creator of Stoopkid Stories, Miss Melissa Victor. Hello, Melissa. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am excellent now that I'm speaking with you. In this particular interview, I'd like to place focus on what evoked Stoopkid Stories. Just the name itself is enticingly descriptive, right? What vividly comes to mind is the quality of life experience and process from the perspective of a youthfully reflective and imaginatively interpretive young one's point of view. With that said, how necessary is it that young people have platforms that allocate them towards production of what allows their stories to be heard and considered?
I remember growing up and watching cartoons, and I will always root for the Black kid that was on the cartoon. So whether that was Gerald on Hey Arnold, Susie Carmichael on Rugrats, or like Proud Family was my jam because I was like, oh, Black girl. So yes. That was so important to me to show this aspect of diversity. I created these characters to reflect what kids from Baltimore live and sound like and breathe like and how they move. And I think that's very important.
Breaking the mold and transitioning from an industry where Black kids have not been represented, what hope do you have for those that finally get an opportunity of seeing that it can be done through what Stoopkid has to offer?
Oh my goodness. Well, my first hope is that when they hear the podcast, they can connect to something, whether that's a character, whether that's whatever happened in the story, whether they just like the theme song, that they just pull something from the episode that they like. On a bigger scale, my hope is that they see that they can use their imagination to create whatever they want. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that creating a podcast is easy by no means, but I do this from the comfort of my own home. And, to really inspire young creatives, young writers, young artists, young actors to, if you have an idea, just go and do it. And do it scared, do it ugly, do it if it's not perfect. And do it from a place of truth and honesty. Because I really try to take care of this world that I've created, mm-hmm. and make sure that it comes from a place of authenticity, a genuine place, and a real grounded place.
Yeah, that's really good. And it's a beautiful asset that you are coming from that true and genuine place, and you're creating this standard to let people understand and know that your creativity matters, and where your creativity comes from, and you matter, and where you come from matters. So the fact that these young learners can see themselves reflected in your podcast stories is, I know, a very uplifting experience for them. It has to be.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So our young people, they have to cope with the new and growing versatility of dialogue, especially when it comes to how they view themselves, like we were just talking about, and how to view others. Stoopkid Stories is unique in that it gives an allotment of jewels and tools. It helps our youth deal with issues stemming from bullying to building new friendships. How often do you hear feedback from the young ones that you've impacted?
More often than I anticipated, honestly. These stories are a conversation starter. Mm-hmm. They're a conversation starter for the Black family. They're a conversation starter for the non-Black family. They're conversation starters for the interracial families.
Yeah.
I've had kids write in and say, "Oh, I really liked what McKinley did when she stood up for having Black history taught 365 days a year, and not just in Black History Month." And the girl had asked her mom, like, "Can I stand up to my teacher like that?" And her mom was like, "Absolutely." And I also had parents who write me and say, "Thank you for that lesson, because I had to remind myself of that too, or thank you for that story because I didn't know how to talk to my child about what's happening in the world. So thank you for putting this in a palatable way for a 7-year-old, for an 8-year-old. So yes, I get feedback often, a lot. Thank God, I get a lot of thank yous and gratitudes from the families that I've touched.
Yeah, that's good, because that is definitely a motivational factor that helps. I know that, like, for me personally, like, hearing that feedback or those testimonials help me to continue to push myself further. So I know that it has to be a nice motivational pull for you to continue to develop these stories and create these stories, especially when you see that what you're doing is in fact impactful and these learners are really learning from it. And not only are they learning from it, they're showing it by reaching back out to you to tell you what they've learned, and they're able to share that in their personal life experiences through what you have created for them.
Yeah.
How much joy do you get digging from within to create such an abundant array of characters for those who look like you and for those who may not?
Oh my goodness, so much joy. It's a little therapeutic also because a lot of times the kids ask me, like, where do you get these stories from? I'm like, my childhood.
Yeah.
Or my sister's childhood, or being a teaching artist, I have taught thousands of kids, in my career thus far. And I think back to stories that I've heard them say, or stories that I witnessed in the classroom, or the stories from my peers. Like, I'm chilling with my girls and they're like, oh my God, I remember when I was in 6th grade and da 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 da. And I'm like, oh, can I use that in the story?
Yeah.
So it's really, really fun to just go back into my childhood and remember, okay, what was going through your mind when you were in the spelling bee in 5th grade? Or and there's some trauma that you have to relive as well, because I do talk about bullying, and as someone who was bullied, what would Melissa now say to that 7-year-old who was bullied by X, Y, and Z? And I use that in the stories as well. So it's therapeutic, and it also brings so much joy just to go back and talk to Stoopkid Melissa.
Yeah. Now you mentioned the word therapeutic and how it is to release this insight and this information through being able to reflect on your younger self. Now, when it ties into like doing things for yourself that are therapeutic, what are some ways that you find therapy or you find a release in the creative art that you are producing?
Well, when I take a lot of naps, that's the amazing thing about being an entrepreneur, is that I can sit and write a story and then I can go take a nap. Yeah. I can sit and send 3 emails and then I can go take a nap, which is amazing. And and I do miss being in rehearsals from 10 to 6, but you can't take a nap from 10 to 6. Yeah. So I make sure that when I'm on my own schedule that I take naps. But also just allowing not judging the creative process. I'm not judging myself, because I went to school for music. Like, I didn't go to school for writing. I've always had an interest in creative writing. Like, if I didn't go to school for music, I would have went to school for creative writing. But sometimes I get imposter syndrome. Like, you don't have a degree in this. You never really study this. It's not like I have a library full of books and I sit and read all day.
Right.
I just like to write and create. But if you're going to put something out into the world, like, don't judge it, especially if it's coming from your brain and your heart. Don't judge it, just do it. So allowing myself to give myself grace throughout the process and through every endeavor that Stoopkid brings me to. So naps and grace, other things.
Yeah, that's really good. And it's also amazing that you allow yourself that space to not be judgmental, and that is a good guess, I guess a good, not even good, but a great model to have or display once again for your young ones, that you don't have to be perfect, and it's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to mess up. And you also mentioned fear, like the fact that even though you didn't go to school for all of these things that you mentioned, you still have a wealth of knowledge within you through the experiences that you've gained throughout your life. So the fact that you can pull from these areas of knowledge shows that you have expertise in this because you've had these experiences. So you are in fact setting an example and being an example for your young learners as well, which is amazing because they need to see that model, they need to see that example. They need to have teachers like you who don't just, talk at them, but they're talking with them and they're sharing these life experiences together. So I commend you, for facing your fear, and I commend you for putting your vision before your fear, because not everybody is willing to do that. Not everybody is willing to face a fear. Some people like to live, some people like to live in that level of comfort. And some people just allow that fear to take over themselves to the point where they don't see beyond it. And that's not your story. So I'm so proud of you and happy for you for taking this step. Now with the new age of, you're very welcome. With the new age of everything that the kids have to experience with being, virtual, how does your podcasting help them, from what they're usually experiencing daily with the virtual learning?
First thing first, it gets them away from the screens. It gets them off their tablet, it gets them off their phone. And I think that's so important. I remember I saw a video of a baby, was no older than 1 year old, sitting on her parents' lap at the doctor's office, and they had a book, like a kid's book, and she started to swipe the book. And I was heartbroken. I was like, she's not even 1 and she's already knows this motion, didn't know to open the book. So I think kids just need to be off screens. I don't know how many times I've run into students who don't know how to double dutch, who don't know how to hopscotch, who have never played jacks, like never did any of those things. And like I had a PlayStation and I double dutched, like Nintendo 64 and go ride my scooter. So, and it's really helpful for the parents that they have a podcast that they can trust, a voice that they can trust. Oh, my kid is listening to Stoopkid stories. I trust Melly. This is suitable for kids. I'm gonna send my child in a corner. They're gonna listen, and I'm gonna go cook dinner. So it gives the parents a break, and the teachers a break. It also brings in curriculum into the classrooms, which is amazing. But yeah, that's the main things, like getting kids off of their phones and getting kids to tap into their imagination, getting them to just listen to a story.
Right. Now
you and imagine,
Yeah. Now you mentioned something about curriculum. Now tell us a little bit more about the Stoopkid curriculum, because I remember us talking before and you were expressing how you have your students actually writing information as the stories go along. Can you elaborate on that a bit more?
Yes. So I have, for my Patreon users, I have an activity page. And on the first page, it'll be a question about the episode. There was an episode about Byron, and he was supposed to tell the class what made him happy, and he was struggling because he didn't know. I was like, oh, nothing makes me happy. So I had on the activity page, it says, what makes you happy? And it has 3 lines and you should be able to write it. Then on the second page, for my kids who may not like to write but are artistic, draw a picture of the episode. So just getting them listening to the story, and also getting it out on paper, getting it out in conversation, dancing to the theme song, moving your body. Because I want this experience to be a full-fledged experience and not just an audible experience. So like I did the Stoopkid Stories theme song dance challenge. I made a TikTok and I sent it out. I was like, send me a video of your child dancing to the theme song. Send me pictures of your child drawing an episode. So it's not just, we listen to the story and we turn it off. Because I ask questions at the end of the episode too, which is I think is super important. If you're in a car ride and the episode is over and the episode says, oh my goodness, how do you when you wake up in the morning, what makes you feel beautiful?
Right.
Ask your parents what makes them feel beautiful, and they can talk about it together. So it's a full circle experience just from one little podcast.
Yeah, I think that's amazing, Melissa, especially because like what we were saying before with the young learners having technology as a learning force for them now, a lot of them, I mean, I've worked with some as of recent who you ask them to write something and they don't know how to spell it or they don't know how to write it
Mhm.
or their handwriting is not legible. So the fact that you are incorporating these worksheets and certain guidelines for them as they watch your podcast gets them back into building up their developmental growth through the literacy, component of education. So that's really, really good. And I'm excited for that as well, because like I said, many kids are missing out on that experience because they're in front of the computer all
Mhm.
day long, like they work a 9 to 5.
Yes.
Now,
Yes.
I want to thank you so much for joining us. Before I let you go, there's a couple of things, like maybe like 2 more questions that I have to ask. So, because I just got to ask these. So, what's next for Stoopkid Stories? Like, what do you have brewing or coming up?
So I'm actually writing a Stoop Kids musical that will
Nice.
be that'll be produced this summer
Okay.
in Connecticut at New Canaan, Connecticut. It's called Stoop Kids Stories Live.
Mhm.
So it's literally the live version of the podcast on stage. So my world is coming full circle. My acting career and my podcast creative career is like merging, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But we start rehearsals literally in 22 days as I look at the calendar.
Nice.
So that's exciting. And that's the next big thing that I have for Stoop Kids. I'm speaking at some podcast conferences on behalf of race and diversity in children's podcasting. But the big thing is the musical.
Yeah, that's exciting. Now, how can, like, once everything is complete with the musical, how can interested individuals tap in to see the performance?
So if you're in the Connecticut, New York, Jersey area, and you want to drive, come on up to New Canaan, Connecticut. It'll be a summer theater, New Canaan. But for those who are far, there will be a live stream. So after we physically close, there will be a live stream link that I'll post on social media and on my website for those to tap in as well.
Okay. And 2 more things. I know we talked about parents. I know we talked about how your podcasting is a benefit for many of the parents of the kids that you teach. Do you offer any other types of supports for parents?
I think the biggest support is the podcast itself.
Okay.
Like I said earlier, it's just, whether it's a conversation starter, whether it's to give the parents a break, whether it's for something the teachers to bring into the classroom. The podcast itself is the gift. It is the service. I do offer like sponsorships if anybody has a business and they want to run an ad on it, we can talk about that. But the podcast itself is the gift that I give to the world.
That is so beautiful, Melissa. Thanks again for joining us today. Before we sign off, you're very welcome. Before we sign off, please let let interested audience members know where they can go to tap into the Stoop Kids brand.
So on social media, I am Stoopkid Stories. That's Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So Stoopkid Stories all over. You can also go to www.stoopkidstories.com to check out my website. And that's where I am.
Awesome. Well, you heard it here, guys. Thanks again for tuning in to Own Being Unique TV, where we have the opportunity of highlighting individuals who take ownership of who they are by operating in their uniqueness. Until next time, peace. Bye. Thank you.